Josh Hennig here on GameNight, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. We are live as always on YouTube and Twitter the day after the Eagles won a game. We told you they would win, by the way, here on 97.3 ESPN. But I know some of you out there didn't believe. So to the non-believers, I'm sorry you weren't part of the party. Now, you would have thrown a little bit of extra money on your FanDuel Sportsbook app on that plus 135 odds. That was guaranteed money for you right there. Come on, people. So we'll get more into the football weekend coming up with Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports at 6:20. We'll also recap the game with you guys here on 97.3 ESPN. And obviously, we will react to the latest Ben Simmons news. If you don't know the full story, we'll talk about it in just a few minutes. But in the meantime, you can catch up on all the details over at 97.3ESPN.com and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Of course, you can join this conversation as well through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Export is open 609-403-0973. And as I mentioned, we're live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. So, Eagles get the win. But I got to admit, it was not exactly what I thought was going to happen. I did think the defense would be better. I didn't think they would get all those interceptions per se. I thought that the Eagles would win the game. But I didn't think the offense would look that bad. And it's getting to the point with the Philadelphia Eagles where this Jekyll and Hyde act that's going on with Sirianni and Gannon is getting embarrassing, honestly. I'm not fully sure if Gannon and Sirianni are just inexperienced or they just don't get it. To be frank with you guys, I'm confused if the Eagles have a coaching staff that fully understands what they're doing. Now, the Eagles have to turn the page very quickly because they got a game against defending Super Bowl champs Tom Brady and Tampa Bay Bucks this Thursday night. They got to turn the page real quick. It's great they got to win. It's important for team morale and for everyone involved that they got some action, that they got a win. Because, again, I don't think they win Thursday night as of right now. I don't think they beat the Raiders in Vegas in 2 weeks. I think the next chance they have to win a game probably is the Lions game. And even that won't be easy because that Lions team does actually play hard. But as the Eagles get ready for this game this weekend, I ask you all this question. Are you more encouraged by the defense, or are you more discouraged by another bizarre offensive performance? Let me know. You could DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. Of course, we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. And of course, text board is open 609-403-0973. You tell me what stands out to you more about that game. Was it the offense looking ridiculous or the defense stepping up? Because I wrote over at 973ESPN.com that this is a defense now that has found ways to get the job done against quarterbacks who are not named Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott. Now, I still contend that the defense played in those games was still poor. It wasn't just the offenses they faced. But is it fully a coincidence that the Panthers, Falcons, and 49ers combined to score 41 points against the Eagles defense, but the Chiefs and Cowboys combined to double that number? I don't think it's a coincidence anymore. I think it's very obvious that when Jonathan Gannon has everything calibrated in his mind properly and is thinking straight, this defense can be very good. They're not great. They're not top 5 defense. This isn't a championship caliber D. But to me, it's very obvious that this defense has the ability to do things. Hargrave is having an amazing season. Okay. Darius Slay with a couple big plays, earning that nickname yesterday. Also, in the Eagles' 2 wins, they have held opponents to under 300 total yards in the game and under 20 first downs in those 2 wins. So the defense can get up and going. Now, I understand some of you out there are saying, look, the Panthers, they're barely an above average team to some people's eyes. Some people feel the Falcons are still garbage. But you can't ignore the 49ers game. And I'm going to throw that in there because the 49ers game proved to you that the defense can do this against higher level teams. When Jimmy Garoppolo was healthy and Kyle Shanahan was calling plays, the Eagles held them to 17. But the Jekyll and Hyde Act, as I wrote at 97.3 ESPN.com, with Gannon and Sirianni is getting exasperating. Because Gannon runs that passive zone where he would try to keep everyone in front of him, barely throwing any disguises, not blitzing at all. It's getting annoying. It's one thing if you're having success with it week in and week out. It's another thing to say, I had success with something for 2 weeks. I'm going to completely abandon it and do something else. And that's what Sirianni does from week to week. Sirianni's got this thing in his mind where he's got to prove how smart he is, or he's trying to reinvent the wheel every week. I don't know what he's doing, honestly. I feel like Sirianni thinks that he's got some amazing game plan every week, and he really doesn't. I don't understand what Sirianni thinks he's doing, but I said it multiple times. He's overthinking. The offensive play calling is so inconsistent. He's so obsessed with the screens, and he's so intent on running these pick plays. And yes, I blame the players on the field for the penalties in some of these situations, but I blame the coach for not putting them in a better position to be successful. It's on the coach to put these guys in a position to be successful. And I don't think he's doing that. I think Sirianni is asking Jalen Hurts to bail him out at times. And I think that's completely unfair to Hurts and a team of very young players. This is a young team, not just quarterback, team. They're very young. They're very inexperienced. And you're asking them week in and week out to go out there and bail you out? I don't rock with that. I don't think that's very cool. I don't think that's very fair. I think that Sirianni and Gannon are proving that their age and their inexperience is coming into a play in a season. This is the first time either one of them has done play calling on either side of the ball. And while I'm glad to see the Eagles got another win, and I think that we got to give Hurts credit for leading the comeback, you got to give the defense credit for going out there and getting the job done and winning the game for this team, I also got to blame the coaches for not putting them in a position to be successful week in and week out. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. Of course, don't forget the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. You can check out my full article over at 97.3ESPN.com and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Before we get to the break, don't forget we have Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports coming up in about 10 minutes from now. I want to get to the Ben Simmons thing because, oh man, the drama never ends. And as it came out earlier today, Woes and Shams reporting that Sixers officials and Ben Simmons' agent, Rich Paul, have progressed in talks on a resolution to bring Ben Simmons back to Philadelphia in the near future. And that apparently Doc Rivers and Rich Paul have remained in dialogue about Simmons potentially ending his holdout and reporting to Philadelphia, but Ben remains resistant to the idea. So my reaction to this is this all comes down to this is really an example of why the Sixers have taken the position that they have. The Sixers' position the whole time has been they were not going to trade Ben Simmons for the sake of trading Ben Simmons. They did not, as an organization, with the ownership in place and the people who have been here for years, they did not draft Ben Simmons and invest years of time and resources into him to trade him for nothing. They are not just giving up on a player that has helped them be successful. Now, Ben Simmons missing free throws, passing up that shot, playing poorly, not being focused, refusing to shoot threes, have all been reasons why they haven't gone farther. But they went 7 games with a Hawks team that many of you listening to my voice did not pick to beat the Sixers. If we go back in time and we place ourselves at the moment in time of game 1 of the Sixers and Hawks series, our concern was Joel Embiid and his health and not Ben Simmons. And by the end of the series, we were praising Embiid for fighting through the injury and we were criticizing Ben Simmons. 7 games changed how we viewed that team at that moment. So for the Sixers, I don't blame them for trying to find a resolution because as far as they're concerned, Ben Simmons still has value to their team. And if Ben Simmons values his money as much as we think he does, because remember, Simmons and his agent tried to go to the NBA PA, the Players Association, and say, we want our money. We want to recoup this money. And the Players Association said, dude, you're in violation of your contract. We negotiated these guaranteed contracts with the idea that you were going to be in camp at games with the team. So if you're not there, we can't get your money back. That's on you to figure that out. And I think Ben Simmons is being forced by the Sixers and his agent to make a decision because Simmons is not Rich Paul's only concern. Rich Paul has a lot of clients aside from LeBron James, his buddy. He's got to worry about Anthony Davis. He's got to worry about Sixers guard Tyrese Maxey. He's got to worry about a lot of dudes around the league who are not Ben Simmons. And I don't think Rich Paul likes the fact, I don't know Rich Paul personally, but I'm assuming that Rich Paul isn't thrilled to be having to use so much of his time and energy and resources on making sure that Ben Simmons is taken care of all the time. I think Paul would like a resolution to this too, because I think Paul might be getting tired as well. I think Paul's talking to the Sixers because I think he's trying to find a resolution as well. Whether Simmons is traded or whether Simmons puts his tail between his legs and comes back to the Sixers, either way, I think Paul wants a resolution to this. I think the Sixers don't want to just dump Ben Simmons for nothing. And you know what? Whether it's the Kings or the Timberwolves or whoever want to call about acquiring Ben Simmons, they just got to step up to the plate and offer something legitimate. Because if Ben Simmons wants to be gone, the Sixers are willing to trade him, but for a price. And if Ben Simmons wants his money, he needs to walk back in the Sixers facility and make good on the contract that he signed, that agreement that he made for 4 more years. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Show being brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Casino in Atlantic City. Bet all the action in style this football season at the state-of-the-art FanDuel Sportsbook, just off the boardwalk at Bally's, Atlantic City. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. And on Friday's show, before we hit the weekend, we gave you guys 7 winners. We went 7-2 over the weekend. We went 4-1 on the college football, 2-1 on the NFL. And of course, those picks every Friday each week are being brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook at Bally's Casino in Atlantic City. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. We'll dig deeper into the NFL and college football weekend coming up next with Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports right here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. I'm Josh Hennig, and this is Game Night.
Kevin Harlan from Monday Night Football on Westwood One with a preview to wrap up Week 5. Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens are 3-1, and they've won 3 in a row. Now they play host to Carson Wentz and the Indianapolis Colts, who picked up their first win of the season last Sunday. Can the Colts break the Ravens streak? Join me, Ron Jaworski, and Rich Eisen to find out on Monday Night Football.
Listen to Monday Night Football on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7:30.
Why would someone looking for a mortgage at the Jersey Shore take a loan from a company in Detroit or North Carolina or some other far-off place? Online mortgages promise a lot but don't always deliver. First Bank of Sea Isle City knows the Jersey Shore. We are local lenders. We use local appraisers and provide in-house processing. We understand the unique obstacles of financing in Cape May County. Don't take a chance. Local banking is better. Let us guide you. First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig back here, Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM, and yes, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. It's powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. We'll get to your guys' messages a little bit later in the hour. Of course, you can DM the show through that aforementioned 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Thanks to First Bank of Sea Isle City. We'll also check the text board at 609-403-0973. And we are live on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. Before we get to all of that, joining us right now on the phone line to get more into a busy football weekend, he is Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports. Joins us right now to talk more about the busy football weekend. Eric, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm trying to, gather my brain a little bit after Saturday's college football slate. And, Sunday, yesterday, we had a great day of football. At least some games were pretty darn entertaining. And, it's a tall order for tonight to match, but we'll see.
So before we get to anything specifically, I just want to ask you a big picture about the football weekend. It's starting to seem more and more that in a year where we were kind of led, for example, in college football, for example, to say, hey, these quarterbacks are the guys. And then in the NFL, these teams are the teams that those quarterbacks and those teams, whether it's Mahomes and the Chiefs or Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma, some of these expectations coming into this season have really just fallen on their face.
Yeah, I mean, I understand we as an industry tend to build certain guys up. They finish the year, like take Rattler, in college, for example. Obviously, he finished last year on a hot streak. It felt like, he'd gotten over the benching. All right, he's the number one pick in the draft. And it's not as if there weren't scouts who weren't interested, right? So I just think Oklahoma fans booing him, in the first game, I think, against Tulane, there was some boos after the second pick. So, or what are we doing here? Can we allow the season to kind of play out a little bit? And of course, he gets benched Saturday, and Caleb Williams looks great in his place. So, it's tough when these things happen. And then to your point about the NFL too, I mean, I will say this: I had a real hard time with my season predictions. Trying to figure out, okay, who's the team that comes out of nowhere, who's the team that falls off, and it ended up being a little dart throwing mixed with some math and a little bit of witchcraft thrown in there too for good measure. But yeah, I mean, there are always surprises. I think obviously it's not like Mahomes is a bad quarterback now. I mean, it's not like the Chiefs are an awful football team. Look who they played, but there's still some surprise. I don't think anyone had them going 2-3 in their first 5 games. The Patriots had to scratch out a win at Houston, really probably should have lost. I don't know what people's expectations were of them, but, and then there were a lot of teams like the Eagles and like the Giants and like the Washington football team. And I guess you'd throw the Cowboys in there too, where you'd say basically the whole NFC East, where you'd say, who's good and who isn't? You tell me, and it's going to end up coming down to the division games and who wins those. So, yeah, it has been a very interesting first 5 weeks, no doubt.
Let's dig deeper on the NFC East question. I think anyone with, half an honest opinion is that they know the Cowboys are the favorite to win the division. But the other 3 teams, there are completely different situations because the Giants just can't seem to get out of their own way, whether literally or figuratively. Washington's defense, surprisingly, is one of the worst scoring defenses in the league. And the Eagles are basically Jekyll and Hyde the entire year. So, how do we paint the NFC East after the first few weeks of the season?
Yeah, it's tough. And obviously, like you said, at this point, Dallas being up essentially 2 games of the division, I think the only team with a positive point differential of the 4, I could be wrong, correct me if I am, but, it certainly feels like right now that's the way it is. And with their moderate improvements defensively, especially in the playmaking department, interceptions and big plays and such, that's really been huge for them, along with, obviously the return to health of Dak Prescott. But, if we're going to ask ourselves, which of the other teams can make a run and try to knock the Cowboys out of their perch. It's a good question. I mean, it really is. Like, I know it wasn't pretty yesterday, but I thought the Eagles showed some character. I thought they really, scratching back, and they were probably lucky to be only down, 9 points or whatever it was at halftime. But, that one was huge after losing 3 straight. They needed that, and so that's at least the building block right there. And you say, boy, if the Giants could get healthy, maybe they're capable of a run. But with all the bad luck that seems to just sort of fall their way and some other questionable moves and decisions they've made, look, they're a tricky team to figure out. Washington, as you pointed out, Ron Rivera's already getting asked questions about whether he's going to start taking over the play calling, and they get Kansas City at home this weekend. So, I don't know what's going to fix that group. I really don't. I was surprised that they haven't been able to generate pressure, cover well, tackle well, some new faces, but there was a lot coming back up front that I think they were counting on to help supply, a big part of what they do defensively. So they're a tough one, obviously, and losing, their quarterback in week 1 didn't help either.
Yeah, to your point, the Cowboys are plus 53 on the point differential. The second best team, though, is the Eagles. They're minus 9 for whatever it's worth. As we mentioned, Washington, they've given up the most points in the NFC so far with 155. So, with all that being said, right, that number just makes you shake your head. Eric, one of the things I wanted to ask you about as well, before we get to some other things, staying in the NFC East, the Eagles quarterback, Jalen Hurts, has become basically a lightning rod at this point. You have a group of people, they're the anti-Hurts people are calling them the Hurts schmoozers, the people who are on the Hurts bandwagon. Another group of people who are like, this guy, he shouldn't be the Eagles quarterback. He's not that good. But how do we judge a player after 9 games? My contention the whole time, Eric, has been, I need more than 9 games to make a decision on a quarterback.
Yeah. it took 60, 70 games to figure out Ryan Tannehill, right? Or at least to have him be used right and in a better situation. And that's not true for every quarterback. Obviously, I think after about 3-4 games last year, we looked at, Justin Herbert, said, aha, this guy's pretty good. We may have underrated him coming out, things like that. But again, those are more exceptions than the rule too. So obviously the first half was kind of a disaster. I don't know how you attempt 20 passes and only gain 32 yards or whatever it was. But the long touchdown pass, the 2-point conversion, he made some plays in the second half. And, I still want to see Quez Watkins get more of a shot. I think he's outplayed Jalen Reagor to this point. I think Devontae Smith, you're going to see more and more of his emergence as well. We know the tight ends are weapons. And also, if he gets a little better help at running back too, I don't know what's going on with Miles, but I just haven't seen the same kind of vision and burst as before. And I don't know, Kenneth Gainwell, I know he didn't play a lot yesterday, but I'm a big fan, and I like what I've seen from him so far. I almost wonder if there's maybe going to be a little more shift towards him and away from Sanders. But, so the supporting cast obviously can help do a little bit of work too. They've had rotating bodies up front, injuries on the offensive line and whatnot. So that's going to be a factor. But has he been inconsistent? Yes, he has, right? The Dallas game was, it was tough to watch at parts because it looked like he was just sort of out of sync and out of sorts, and he gets in those little funks. So the key for him, I think, is to try to avoid those situations as best you can. But you're right. We've got about a half a season of data on him. It's just not enough. It's not enough to definitively say, no, this guy can't be a starter for us, or yes, he absolutely can. So, yeah, this is a pretty good season, I think, to do some evaluation and figure out, is he at least improving? Is he cutting back on the mistakes that we kind of harped on early on? And that'll help determine that answer. I wouldn't throw the bathwater out just yet. I think there's something in this kid that's a little different, even if, you have to get used to certain things with his style.
Eric Edholm joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM. You can follow him on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. Check out all of his coverage of the NFL, college football, and the NFL draft over at Yahoo Sports. Eric, a couple quarterbacks who are not Jalen Hurts I want to ask you about because, as I mentioned, you do cover the NFL draft. Where we are right now, a couple of years removed from drafts in the past, Josh Allen is looking more and more like the best quarterback from his class. And Justin Herbert is just going to a level that I think some people weren't even sure if he was able to make. What does it say to you about the development of those two guys? A guy like Allen, who looked so bad his first year in the NFL, and a guy like Herbert, who we saw on Hard Knocks, Anthony Lynn did not want to hand the keys to the car to him at all to start that year.
Yeah, and I'll just throw another name in there as like a parallel. I don't know if we're going to quite have the same discussion, but here in Chicago with Justin Fields, I'm sure people have at least kept one eye on that situation.
Yep.
It's Nagy, he kind of had to be arm wrestled into really giving Fields the starting job, and first only came after injury. So, you almost wonder, like, some of these guys who are being held back maybe unnecessarily, and vice versa. Some quarterbacks who are thrust in there right away who may not have deserved to be in them. I mean, Zach Wilson struggled so far, and I know he's the number 2 pick in the draft. Trevor Lawrence has been up and down. So, everybody has a different path and a different pattern to get to where they need to be, and a different, pace of development. But what those two guys, Josh Allen and Justin Herbert have are phenomenal traits. And I think more mental toughness than they were given credit for, too. There was some talk in the scouting circles about Josh Allen kind of sulking after interceptions, or, if his receiver didn't do what he wanted or he didn't get the protection. And there was some questions about, boy, if he's, if he can't hack it up in the Mountain West, what's he going to do in the, in the NFC East or whatever, wherever he ended up landing is what they were saying at the time. So, and I think with Herbert, the whole talk about him being an introvert, his personality, is he going to be able to command a locker room and things like that? Obviously, that got overblown. But what I think the biggest factor was for him was that he played in a horizontal offense in college. And this guy clearly needs to be throwing the ball vertically. He got a few shots, obviously, in college to do that. Never had elite receivers, had good receivers. But, now that he's got a stable of wideouts, they've done a good job protecting him. Even last year when he didn't have great protection, he clearly was making some big boy throws there. It really shows that those traits can flourish if you get put in a good system, and you're brought along at the right pace, and you have to figure out what that is. There is a sweet spot. It's never perfect. You got to have a guy in front of you to feel good about starting, to begin the season, obviously. But traits, big arms, athletic ability, toughness, strength, maneuverability when they're in the pocket or outside. Both guys are oozing with talent, and it just was incomplete at the college level. Allen more so than Herbert, I would say.
Let's flip it over to college, Eric. I want to ask you, because you wrote about the quarterback situation over at Yahoo Sports, and I'm just wondering, it's starting to feel more and more like the 2022 NFL draft quarterback class is going to be nowhere near what anyone expected it to be. It's starting to feel more and more like maybe all of these guys just need another year to stay in college, or maybe, they're just all on really rough situations. I mean, obviously Sam Howell and Keaton Slovis are in unenviable situations, but guys like Rattler and others, I think there were a lot more expected of them.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And maybe, just maybe, we media folks have pumped these guys up a little too prematurely. I mean, Spencer Rattler, remember, was benched last year. He got back in the starting lineup. Pardon my dog, who's going crazy upstairs right now. But yeah, I mean, he was benched, responded well, played well down the stretch. We essentially took about a 5-6 game sample size and said, aha, he's ready to break out. A little bit unfair, right? Now, Howell, obviously, elite recruit, started as a true freshman, came along, had the big year last year. It was a little more understandable why we balled him up, but we overlooked the fact that, UNC's talent level on the whole was down this year. The offensive line is a bad situation. There's only so much you could do there. Slovis is a mystery at UNC. Obviously, their coaching situation and everything that's going on there is certainly a factor, but him not playing well, and scouts were interested in him. His accuracy is uncanny, but everything else has looked terrible this year. So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those deals where you say to yourself, even though we can see the trend going more towards the 3, 4, 5 quarterback round ones these days, because that's what college people think, and that's what evaluators think is going to happen. If the prospects aren't there, don't take them. Don't use first-round picks on those guys. That's just the bottom line. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting whether a Malik Willis from Liberty or a Matt Corral from Ole Miss or somebody like that can, get into that upper region of prospect level.
Yeah, and also the fact that there's no guy. You just mentioned two guys that half the country has no idea who they are. There's no clear-cut guy out there. Because everyone has a flaw, right? Every one of these quarterbacks has some sort of quote-unquote red flag that people want to wave that's against them. And I just have to wonder, if I'm an NFL team, right, and I'm trying to say, what is my quarterback situation moving forward? A team like Pittsburgh, or maybe Houston, for example, with the Deshaun Watson mess, or whatever it is. If you're a team and your scouts are coming back and giving you all these conflicting, roller coaster reports on these quarterbacks, are maybe NFL teams just going to look at the draft and be like, you know what? We're good. We're good. We're not going to draft some of these guys. We're not going to draft them high. We're going to stick with what we got.
Yeah, it could be, right, especially in an offseason where, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers and other veteran quarterbacks could be available. It wouldn't be shocking to see a little bit of a trend away from that. The question is obviously going to be whether, remember the year when, obviously you remember because you're local, but Goff and Wentz went 1-2.
Oh, yeah.
Had you told people in November 1st, okay, Jared Goff's going to be first pick, Carson Wentz will go number 2, I think people would have laughed at you. Goff at least was becoming a name, but he'd had a 5-interception game at Utah. He had some other kind of outings that maybe opened some question marks a little bit. We tend to sort of gloss over the warts a little bit over time. So I see what you're saying. It also wouldn't shock me if in a couple months opinion has changed a little bit.
Eric, one more before I let you go. Always appreciate you jumping on. Alabama got upset by Texas A&M. Georgia continues to roll. Iowa pulls out the win over Penn State. Ohio State continues to roll. But how many of these teams are actually better than Alabama? How much of the Alabama loss on Saturday was just Texas A&M going in there with a great plan, and how much of it was Alabama is not as good as Georgia or fill in the blank team?
Well, I had questions about Alabama's offensive line, and I thought defensively they were good, maybe not great. And their defensive line, I was surprised. The line of scrimmage is really where, in my opinion, they lost that game, even with, some success running the football, et cetera. But I'm with you. I still think they're going to end up one of the top 4 teams. I really do. I don't know that there are enough heavyweights out there, enough true contenders, especially in a year when Clemson struggled and other, candidates to be one of those top 4, outside of the Georgia and Ohio States. We haven't really seen the others really kind of step up to that level where you can kind of say, all right, they're unimpeachable. They're going to be able to slide through. So I think that loss will not end up looking quite as bad. On the road, 100,000+ people, an A&M team that's going to win this week and probably the next couple weeks too. That one's going to probably also, like our draft quarterbacks, look a little better down the road.
He is Eric Edholm. Follow him on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. Check out all of his coverage of the NFL draft, college football, and the NFL over at Yahoo Sports, and his latest article breaking down the NFL draft quarterbacks right now over at Yahoo Sports. Eric, always appreciate you jumping on the insights.
All right, thanks, buddy. See ya.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. I see messages that have been coming in throughout my conversation with Eric, so we'll get to them. Of course, there's the text board, 609-403-0973. You can also DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, priority messaging, thanks to First Bank of Seattle City. And we are live, as always, on YouTube and Twitter at 973 ESPN. I'm Josh Hennig, and this is Game Night.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. This Thursday night, it's week 6 of the 2021 season, with the Eagles hosting the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And with zeros on the clock, the Eagles have beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Pre-game coverage begins at 7. Maryland might call all the action starting at 8:20. This is where the Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles station.
It's game time. Football season is in full swing, and you can catch all of the NFL action at the FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's Hotel and Casino, Atlantic City. It's time to get in on all the games you love. Experience sports betting done right with live streaming games, food and beverage, self-service betting kiosks, and more. Get your game face on and score big this weekend when you bet at FanDuel Sportsbook in Bally's off the boardwalk, Atlantic City. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Eagle fans, Baldy on the mic to introduce you to a new solar team of EMT Solar Roofing and Solar Guardians. Need a new roof? Want to go solar? Have solar but need to upgrade your roof? They're your solar team no matter your football team. Visit ESPNSolar.com to stop getting sacked by high electric bills. EMT Solar Roofing and Solar Guardians. One click, one team, one solution. Start saving thousands today at ESPNSolar.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. You can join the conversation, DM the show. Thanks to First Bank in Sea Isle City. We'll get to all your texts at 609-403-0973 and all your messages in just a moment. Don't forget, NFL Week 5 finishes tonight. And FanDuel Sportsbook wants you to get the most out of every game day, and that's why they're giving everyone a $10 risk-free bet each week. All you have to do is make a same-game parlay bet with 3 legs or more. And if your bet doesn't win, FanDuel will pay you back up to $10. And Monday Night Football is a great opportunity for you to make a same-game parlay bet with FanDuel Sportsbook. So lock in your risk-free bet today on FanDuel and get up to $10 back if your bet doesn't win. Find out for yourself why FanDuel Sportsbook is America's #1 sportsbook. Because if you're new to FanDuel, you can claim 30-1 odds on either team to win tonight's game, Colts versus Ravens, which you can hear right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 7:30. Just sign up with promo code Hennig, and your first bet loses. You get the $1,000 back in site credit. That's promo code Hennig for new users to get your risk-free bets for Monday Night Football on FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Must be 21 or older to play and present in New Jersey. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Same game parlay available for multiple sports in all states on mobile or web. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Here's some same game parlay ideas for you guys out there. So I really like 2 specific props for tonight that I'm liking them more and more. I kind of chew on them. Jonathan Taylor over 59.5 rushing yards. We know that Baltimore's defense has been very inconsistent this year. This has not been a great defense on the year. They have allowed points. They have allowed yards. In fact, they're one of the worst teams in rushing scoring defense in the NFL, and they're allowing over 4 yards per rush attempt to opponents. So I like Jonathan Taylor to hit the over 59. He has come on in recent weeks. Jonathan Taylor, last week, 103 rushing yards, the week before, 64. His lowest on the year is 51, but that was in a game that he wasn't really used very well, and it was against the Rams. So I like Jonathan Taylor hit the over 59.5 rushing yards. I also like Lamar Jackson hit the over 229.5 passing yards. Remember, Lamar, he hasn't even passed for 229 yards this year. The least he's passed for is 235 in week 1. Since then, he's gone to 239, 287, and 316. His completion percentage is not great, but Lamar Jackson is averaging on the year 269 passing yards per game. I understand that the Colts defense has been solid this year, but they are beatable. They are allowing 24.3 points per game. That's 19th in the NFL. So the Colts defense is not elite. So I like those 2. And then to make the third leg in your parlay, because you remember, at least 3 legs or more for the same game parlay, you throw in Ravens to cover -2.5. I don't like the 7.5, but you get the alternate spread. Throw in the -2.5. Those 3 together in the same game parlay, plus 490 odds. Same game parlay for you over there on FanDuel Sportsbook. Remember, promo code Hennig when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Get a couple of messages in here before we bounce out of here. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973. Dan from EHC says, I think Laurie and Roseman don't want this team to win, if you know what I mean. If you remember, Laurie said after Chip Kelly's let go, it was about being number 1 or 2 seed, not being mediocre. This is about next year's draft and loading up on top tier talent. I understand what you're saying, Dan, from EHC, but I don't think there's a situation where they're trying to put a bad team on the field or they're trying to be the worst team possible, because realistically, guess what? The Dolphins are doing that for you. You got the Dolphins pick next year, and that's projected to be a top 5 pick. It's looking more and more like. So I don't think you need to be a bad team. I think the Eagles understand they're in a rebuilding year. This is a year of transition. I don't think Roseman and Laurie are trying to be horrible to avoid being mediocre, but I do agree with you. I think they are trying to make a better team long term after the draft next year, load up on top tier talent. You're right. And then build toward the future. I think this is a long-term plan, not a 1-year plan. One more message before we get out of here. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Over at 609-403-0973. Texter says Ben Simmons wants out of Philadelphia because he's afraid to show his sorry face in front of Sixer fans again. Listen, it's more than that. I got to be honest with you guys. To me, a lot of the problems with Ben Simmons comes down to Ben. I think Ben just doesn't like Philadelphia. I don't think he likes the criticism. I don't think he likes being questioned. I think Ben Simmons wants to go to a team where he's just asked to be part of the team and he can get the treatment of a star, but not the responsibility of a star player. Remember, he always likes to talk about how he's a 3-time All-Star, right? He loves to point out his resume. Ben Simmons does not have the edge to be a great player in a market like a Philadelphia or New York or a Chicago or a Boston. He needs to go somewhere like Minnesota or Sacramento where he'll be accepted for who he is. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. I'll catch you tomorrow.